All right, we're here, another episode of Rootstrap, and we got my good buddy, Rener Gracie, who is a badass entrepreneur who will beat you down if needed, but he doesn't need to because he's got the discipline and he's got a lot of fucking status with martial arts and jiu-jitsu and his new company. So I want you to kind of take it from here.
I'm going to assume that, you know, a good percentage of the listening audience right now has really no idea who I am or what I do. So you may have heard of my last name. I'm a member of the Gracie family, which is credited with essentially creating Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing martial art on the planet. And based on original Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, my grandfather learned it as a young kid in Brazil. The challenge was he wasn't very physically fit, so he had to modify these Japanese techniques to accommodate his frail body. The result of that innovation and modification was Gracie or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, known worldwide now. In Brazil, they had conducted challenge matches so that my grandfather was fighting these giants of other martial arts and defeating them, even though they were up to 100 pounds heavier, proving that Jiu-Jitsu was effective for a smaller person against a larger opponent. And then my dad grew up in this legacy as well as his siblings in Brazil. My dad, after graduating in law school, came to America in 1978, started teaching classes in his garage here in Hermosa Beach, Southern California. And every person he met, he invited for a free class. They loved it. They would tell a friend. The friend would get a free class. They would get a free class for referring the friend. So he was just, you know, wheeling and dealing there, and eventually packed in his garage after 10 years. So many students in the garage. And through that time, so many challenge matches with disciplined martial artists, traditional taekwondo, karate, kung fu. This is happening in America, underground in the garages. And a lot of these videos are on YouTube. Just search Gracie challenge matches. And what would happen is you get this, you know, 30-year karate master who doesn't believe in jiu-jitsu. So they would challenge through the grapevine. They would hear about each other, and then they would have these challenge matches. And it was a very scientific experiment where they would say, "Okay, I'll do my thing, you do your thing, and it's in the garage and or in the dojo somewhere, and we'll go until someone taps out or gets knocked out or choked out." And you know, invariably, these masters looking for the perfect punches and kicks would get taken to the ground in like 10 seconds, and then in another 30 seconds, they're tapping out to a submission that they've never seen before. Because we're talking Bruce Lee era, Chuck Norris era, where it was all about what's fancy and pretty, not what works.
Totally.
And, you know.
So growing up with this, I mean, did you ever consider not pursuing a life of jiu-jitsu?
Well, good question. I don't think there was a choice.
That's so, what I'm envisioning you being like in these garages in the South Bay
so I'm
with your brothers and
sisters. My whole life.
And did you ever feel like you had a choice?
No, it wasn't really. You're born on the mat. You know what I'm saying? You learn how to walk on a mat. Your gi is your first, you know, outfit, and that's really no choice. And it was no different for my son now, who's turning 3 pretty soon. He doesn't know life without jiu-jitsu as playtime in the living room after dinner, you know, on the floor in front of the TV right there. So that's just how we grow up. I think around 17, 18, 19, every Gracie has a choice. Right. Like, am I going to dedicate my whole life to this? Or am I going to take the skills that I've learned, appreciate them as, you know, life skills and self-defense skills and all that provides, and transition into, you know, another profession? But here's the thing. By the time you're 18, 19, you're a black belt, usually in the family. And a black belt is like a PhD. It's not a bachelor's or a master's degree in jiu-jitsu. It's a PhD. It's so major that why would you, with a PhD in one field of expertise that is in high demand right now, shift professions and start over as a no degree and then start climbing the ladder somewhere else? It just doesn't make sense. Now, maybe one day when jiu-jitsu is not as, you know, marketable, valuable, and desirable to the world as it is now with this UFC hype, maybe that'll happen. But today, most Gracies who come in, you know, they take advantage and they stick with it. So, and then my father was the one who was very involved in the creation of the UFC. So after this whole garage day era,
you were first generation born in America.
We were the first ones ever born here.
Speak fluent Portuguese.
Yeah, speak Portuguese, learning it growing up in the household, but my mom's American.
Got it.
So ours are the first generation Americans. My dad's here doing his thing. And after 10 years in the garage, it was too many students. So he opened the first Gracie Academy location here in Torrance. And then after that is when he realized, wow, with a business partner of his, man, if we can put these challenge matches that have happened in the garage that are so captivating and so mind-blowing and so shocking to the fighters themselves, especially the karate guy who gets choked out in a minute, but also to all the spectators who witnessed this raw engagement of two different disciplines, if we can captivate that or capture that and put it on television, we can really captivate a global audience and educate martial artists everywhere.
So what time period are we in right
1993,
now?
November
1993. So this is, I mean, this is like 20 years even pre-hype of UFC, MMA.
Today blows up, $4 billion industry, but we're talking 25 years ago at least. And yeah, this is the 25th anniversary this year, and it was just basically it was just a petri dish for experimentation on the subject of what martial art actually delivers what it promises.
Now, how is the Gracie family regarded in the martial arts communities? Because I feel like you've always been, just knowing you as an entrepreneur, you are an innovator disruptor.
Right.
And I would imagine that's been the case with the family.
And it didn't start with me. This has been, the Gracie family has been disrupting martial arts since 1925. As soon as my grandfather and his brother Carlos were introduced to jiu-jitsu and began kind of adding their own spin to it, they quickly said, okay, this is so ridiculously effective, I'm willing to test it against anybody else out there who doesn't believe it and is down to test it. And these were the challenge matches. So that's disrupting, because normally karate guys stick to karate guys.
Right.
Judo sticks to judo.
Right.
Sumo sticks to sumo.
Right.
Boxers stick to boxers.
They're not playing with each
Boxers
other.
are not fighting kickboxers in no rules matches except for Bloodsport, Jean-Claude Van Damme, or Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
It doesn't happen. It's cartoon stuff. It's fantasy stuff. But here's the crazy part. Every one of those disciplines for generations has been claiming that they're most effective for real combat in a fight when it actually matters.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, martial arts, if you trace it all the way back, every one of them, the origin was not a sportive practice, recreational sport for Olympic practice to score points by kicking someone with your pads on.
Right.
That's not where it started. That's where it ended up.
Right.
And jiu-jitsu is no different. It all started for effectiveness in real fights, real combat, whether it was on the battlefield, samurai, or whether it was street fight, in a rough neighborhood. It all began there. So the idea was, let's put all the arts in the UFC together, let them fight against each other, knowing that ours was the most effective. And my dad was clever because he intentionally chose my uncle Hoist to represent our discipline because he was one of the smaller members of the family. And he knew...
So how many different...
8 disciplines in UFC 1.
8 disciplines. And what about in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Meaning what?
Are there any other...
Well, so
groups or...
Yeah, so see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as one big orchard.
Okay.
With a bunch of different trees.
Yep.
So within jiu-jitsu, yes, the Gracie family has all of our academies that my brother and I oversee all over the world. Then there's second cousins of ours who have their own academies that they oversee. So there are kind of different dialects of the same language, but we're all jiu-jitsu against the world. It's definitely one mindset that jiu-jitsu, we all believe in it with our lives. Now, how we interpret it and how we teach it can differ from one to the other.
Sure. I mean, for me, I was blown away. I get this first class white glove experience going to your academy, and you tell me the whole history, show me your grandfather on the wall, get suited up, get my swag, and love the class. And then you tell me, Ben, just so by the way, if you want to continue and become a badass jiu-jitsu fighter, you really only need to roll with blue belts.
Right.
And that concept to me was so mind-blowing because I've always thought of martial arts as this, the black belt factory.
Right.
Where you gotta have respect for the master, and you gotta go into the dojo, or you gotta go into the fight scenario every single 5 days a week, and that's how the hierarchy structure of martial arts works. And here you are telling me, you know what, Ben, you don't actually need to do this. We've got content.
Find a good training partner.
Find a training partner, and I'm like,
100%.
Interesting.
And the reason that's possible is because other martial arts, if you were to take Taekwondo, or you name any one of them, even Western boxing, to get proficient enough in Western boxing to where if you got in a fight out there on Sunset Boulevard against a guy who outweighed you by 30 pounds, 20 pounds.
Yep.
Not a monster, but a bigger guy.
Sure.
A couple 100 pounds and reasonable athletic shape. If you fought that guy and you had been Western boxing for a year and a half, you know just enough to get yourself knocked out. You feel me?
Yep.
You know just enough to get yourself in trouble.
Yep.
Because here's the thing. Boxing, Taekwondo, kickboxing, all these arts that rely on a striking range to be effective, every time you're in range to hit the guy with the techniques you've been developing, you're also in range to get hit by him. And that's why any striking art or discipline is just a coin toss of effectiveness.
Sure.
Unless you spend 5, 7, 10 years and you really commit your life to this practice, then you're so precise, so athletic, so sharp, and so effective with your art that you, in one hit, you can drop this person like that. That's a different story.
And exerting a lot less energy than any other discipline.
Yes, but jiu-jitsu cheats. Jiu-jitsu is the hack.
It's a hack. It's a hack
to martial arts.
It's the hack.
This is the disruptor of all Here's why. And people always say, Henner, what was the biggest change that jiu-jitsu brought to martial arts? If you count the whole last 40 years in America, 25 since the creation of the UFC, what do you feel like changed? And what changed pre and post Gracie family in America is the distance at which fights are fought. Before the Gracie family, to fight like a man, it meant that you had to stand there and trade blows until someone got knocked out.
Right.
The Gracie family and jiu-jitsu in general, and it's all of its representatives in and out of the family, said, no, that's stupid. Why would I stand toe-to-toe in a fight for my life? I could die right now in a street fight. Why would I stand toe-to-toe where both of us are at range to hit each other equally, and whoever's more powerful will win? The Gracie philosophy is, let's instead stand slightly outside of striking range where neither one of us can hit each other until I can draw you in and trick you to think that I'm retreating. And when you overcommit, I shoot in and grab you in a clinch. And then while close range, you can't strike me anymore. I take you to the ground, and on the ground, you don't have the hips, the balance, or the power to deliver a knockout blow, but I have all the control and all the submissions that we talked about when you came and trained with me to say, well, I can seal this deal a million different ways. Anything you reach out and touch me with on the ground, I can break or choke. So it's cheating. So we're changing the distance at which fights are fought.
What's it like being a kid, in South Bay, knowing the cheat codes to fighting, but also probably hearing a lot of shade and criticisms from other people in other disciplines or other people in the martial arts communities? What's that like?
Yeah. Good question. It definitely, you talk about disruption, and we never used that word in the Gracie family growing up because it was not a very entrepreneurial spirit. It was simply effectiveness pursuance, right, and proof. But disruption is the perfect word for what it felt like we were doing. We were not accepting traditional or existing martial arts and their claimed effectiveness as it was. So it felt like somewhat of a rebel state to be like, all right, well, everyone in the world believes X. We don't believe that. We have a different belief. And, for lack of a better comparison, it felt like a religion almost. Like, no, their religion and this, and we believe something completely different.
Is it almost like flattery if you get called out or people talk shit against you? Because it kind of gives you a validation.
It's not flattery, yes, but it got to the point where it was so common and so effectively managed in the sense of you're a Korean kickboxing champion and you come to Gracie Academy and I'm 17 years old and I was often the person to do these fights. So it's okay, my brother or myself. And they say, this guy doesn't believe in jiu-jitsu. He wants to now fight someone. And he would pick between me and my brother, and we would fight him. And we would represent, and we would beat this guy. And he would leave, and 9 times out of 10, they would become students. So for us, someone's ignorance, people don't know what they don't know. So I understood that if a martial artist is punching bricks and chopping wood for 30 years, and that's where all of his confidence and training, and all of this is being built up on the illusion that he believes something is a fight when it really isn't. And then he comes and experiences it for real. We're very, we're very understanding that they've been in the dark behind a curtain for a long time. And we're very happy.
And they're incentivized to be in the dark. Like to me, when I think of it, being an outsider, and I think about this as my own business, the advertising agency model, the digital agency model, it's a bunch of old executives in a room who are very comfortable with the way the model has been, who don't want to disrupt it, but their incentives are misaligned all over the place. And that's kind of what I think about with these old masters who kind of are part of the secret club.
And they kind of need to keep it that way.
They need to keep it that way.
Because their legacy status is based on it staying that way. Because if you climb to the top of a mountain and then it becomes found out that that mountain is not the realest mountain of street combat that exists, then fewer people are going to keep climbing that mountain in the future. So you don't want that to be exposed in any way for yourself or for your legacy or for your future. But here's the thing. Where there's no disruption, there's no progress.
Is this hard? Is it a hard concept for your dad or your elders to grasp sometimes, being the sort of visionary disruptor who's now leading the family?
Yes. So that was interesting, and that kind of transitions more into what we were speaking about earlier in terms of what my brother and I Because, excuse me, because even though we come up in a very disruptive family with a very disruptive objective of changing martial arts around the whole world, and we've done that with the UFC. Now every single fighter in the UFC is at least a purple belt, brown belt, or black belt before they enter the UFC in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
So it's kind of the prerequisite to even start thinking about fighting, along with any other skills you might have. So now that that's been accomplished, my brother and I really had to sit down and ask ourselves what was going to be our contribution to the family, the legacy, martial arts, and really civilization, mankind as a whole. What can we do now that jiu-jitsu has been proven to be as effective as it is? What's the next phase of this family legacy? And after a lot of reflection, we realized that what's needed next is very structured distribution channels to make this information learnable worldwide. Because what you have without that is a chaotic feeding frenzy of people who want to learn the art that has now been proven globally, but have no way to learn it.
Right.
And that's what sparked the creation of GracieUniversity.com, an interactive online learning center through which anyone...
I mean, you gotta have some of these old masters going, what the
They
fuck is this
hate
guy
it.
doing? He's creating like interactive content for
think about
martial
this.
arts.
Yeah, to learn through the internet is the most untraditional mindset in the world, to think that you can learn via a video. And the masters don't want this because they want to create the illusion that in order to learn anything, I have to be standing barking orders at you, and you have to be in the room that I'm in with me. Otherwise, there's no way you can progress and develop any kind of effective skill set. And they're wrong.
Right.
So my brother and I launched GracieUniversity.com with the objective of putting every technique of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu online in order. Lesson 1 to lesson 2. Lesson 3 builds on 1 and 2 all the way to black belt. We're talking 10 years of training content here. The most robust video curriculum of any subject ever created, of any sport for sure. Probably any academic subject, if I'm not mistaken, linear, where it goes in order and it builds off previous lessons. So we started filming. 10 years ago, we started filming 2008, and we didn't stop. Whenever we're together, we're filming lessons in order, direct to camera, talking to that at-home user who's watching us and following us through the curriculum.
Right.
And literally, to follow this, all you need is a training partner, one training partner who's down, 10 by 10 square foot. This room that we're in right now is big, more than big enough. You move that table out of the way, and a screen with internet connection, and you can be our personal students of jiu-jitsu and learn anywhere in the world.
Add some VR, you might even feel some real pain.
Well, so here's what we did, because my first thing was, well, I can put out the best material in the world and most structured curriculum, but how do I know if it's landing?
Right.
That was the big key for me. Because to have a student out there in the middle of nowhere is exciting. The only thing more exciting than that is me knowing that they're there, is them knowing that I'm watching them. So we created the first, and only as far as I know it, from a sportive athletic perspective, online instruction of athletics, video evaluation process. Whereas a student goes through a certain milestone in the curriculum, they can digitally record themselves performing all the material that they learn in a module in a very time-restricted manner, and get a very thorough, time-coded feedback from a certified instructor who evaluates the whole video and writes down at video number 2 out of 5, video number 2 at 2 minutes and 32 seconds, your grip was wrong on the wrist. We've created this, we launched it, and we're killing it.
That's wild.
People all over the world. And what happens is once they reach certain level of effectiveness remotely, based on this real-time feedback, they can go to a certified training center anywhere in the world and take a test and earn official promotions. So periodically visiting the certified training centers, your home is Gracie University, Matt.
So you've taken this amazing open source approach where you want to give your cheat codes. When should you be denying somebody Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu?
It's a great question. My grandfather always felt that Jiu-Jitsu is for the smaller and the weak. In other words, it exists for the small person to have a chance against a larger, more athletic person. That's why it's so powerful. That's what it's capable of doing. And he always said, yeah, the guy, if you're over 6 foot, 200 pounds, you don't need Jiu-Jitsu and you don't deserve Jiu-Jitsu. And we need it for you guys. Then he had grandkids that were 6'4", 200 plus pounds, and we ruined all that. So we kind of automatically slipped into it, and we were blessed with the opportunity to learn this from day one, and then we grew a lot bigger than they thought we would. But not that there was ever any major restriction.
Is there ever a time, like, just attitude or energy? Somebody comes in the academy, and you're just like,
yes, absolutely.
I don't want this asshole.
We've done it. We've already done it. And a lot of schools won't do that because they want the dollar.
Right.
But we're like, yo.
Or they have the mentality, well, we'll just deal with it on the mat.
Yeah, correct. Or we'll just kind of punish him. We'll just kind of box him in and he'll learn the hard way. You told me
this story when we were training of, you know, a guy, you know, and I won't say who because I don't want to, you know, I know this is confidential client information, but you were training someone and he asked you to, you know, put him to sleep. And the guy said, no, like you have to show me so that I can kind of like re-show that and re-educate that. And when I thought of it, I was like, dude, what a dick. Like who's asking to like be put to sleep? So when do you decide when's like the moral, ethical, right decision? Right.
So 2 separate questions there. One is regarding the punks who come in who want it for the wrong reasons. You can smell it from a mile away. Someone comes in with an attitude and disbelief, and sometimes there's a little challenge match. We tie them up in a knot, and we show, yo, we got you, and we seal the deal. And then after, okay, I want to learn this and that. They do 2 classes, and right away they rub everyone the wrong way, and we say, no, this is not for you. The culture, the vibe, the connection, because here's the deal. When you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're trusting your training partners with your life and your limbs. Every time you caught me in a submission when we were training, I have to believe 100% for sure that you're going to let go when I tap.
Right.
And you did, and we're friends because of it, and it's all good. But if you ever get someone on the mat, a bad apple, who doesn't play by the same code of conduct and the same respect and integrity on the mat, in a second you got to get rid of them, because my policy is simple. I'll never lose 2 students because of 1 student.
Interesting.
If you're 1 and you're a bad apple, and there's even a slight chance that we lose 1 because of you, you're gone way before you have a chance to affect 2. That's number 1. Regarding the rendering of the student unconscious, it was a law enforcement officer. It wasn't a punk at all. It was a really nice guy. And he said, Rener, I'm a police officer. I'm learning these techniques from you to teach my colleagues. And I certify law enforcement all over the country. It's a huge part of our business. And he said, can you please do the neck restraint to me and render me unconscious? And I said, well, that's not a really good idea. And he says, no, I beg you. And I says, he says, I beg you, because if I'm going to be teaching this and I'm going to be using this in the field, I need to know what I'm doing.
That's right.
The same way a police officer has to get tased to use a taser.
Right.
And I said, well, only in that regard, it makes perfect sense. So I did it to him, and it was very safe because I know the maneuver, I know the technique, and I know how not to make it dangerous. And he was rendered unconscious. He woke up 3 seconds later, and he was totally fine. And it was a very insightful experience for him. So that was purely scientific. He wasn't a punk at all. And it was actually the most honorable reason ever to ask to get rendered unconscious was the reason he asked for.
Wild. So having this kind of power, how has it been? You know, you just had, you got another kid on the way?
Yeah, so we're expecting our 2nd child. Haven,
and
I have his
Eva,
3.
Eva is a former fighter. She currently fights as well.
Eve was in the WWE for 5-6 years, 3-time champion, was an incredible team member there, and wrestled for so many years and loved it, and was a performer with them. And then I met her just when she had started there. So that was cool. She started learning jiu-jitsu and, doing WWE wrestling at the same time with the crew there. And she was able to incorporate much of what I taught her, which was awesome. And yeah, so now she has since retired. We started a family, and now she teaches full-time our women's program, Women Empowered. And she's just the full head instructor, lead ambassador for that, and she does great. Some
of the videos are awesome where she's just like, no, like not, just because I'm a woman, like go full force.
Oh, yeah. She lets it rip. Yeah, so
she lets it rip. So she's also raising the family. Mm-hmm. You've got kids now. What's that like in terms of knowledge transfer and also the responsibility? Because I'm sure you can afford to be a lot scrappier when you're young, and now it's like, okay, this is a different thing.
I'm very fortunate, and I really tried to time it out. That was just me personally. Like, I wasn't going to start a family until I had planted the trees of, possibility in my different business ventures that I was comfortable with. And it was very strategic, and it was, I'm going to get this sorted out. So I created Gracie University Online Learning Center. We started licensing our curriculum, different Gracie curriculums, to schools all over the world, which are now certified training centers. So we have over 150 schools that teach our jiu-jitsu curriculums that we oversee the instructors' development directly, my brother and I. So all these seeds got planted and trees started growing really effectively about 5-6 years ago. And once those were in place, bringing kids into that, was much more manageable, because it was just, okay, I know what I need to, I know what I'm doing. I just need to do more of that.
Right.
So I was very fortunate to have figured that out at an early stage in my life. And now it's just continued
and
growth.
You're dabbling, you know, whether it's tech, whether it's merchandise and apparel, and I want to talk about that in a sec. You're starting to, you know, build this legacy, and also, you know, how can I build something where it's not going to take a toll on my body for the next 50 years?
Well, yeah, I'm always thinking of other opportunities and just looking at the world, because, you know, to me, you know, problems are just, you know, techniques waiting to be discovered, and challenges in life are just businesses waiting to be born, you know, and opportunities waiting to be seized. And that's the truth in jiu-jitsu. So no matter what position you put me in jiu-jitsu, no matter what headlock, no matter what hold, no matter what position of control you have, to me, there is no impossibility from a physical control perspective. We could literally move these things out of the way, start on the ground, and you or anybody else here in the office could grab me any way imaginable you could start from, and I would have a technique to get out of, or I would create one to get out of.
Has the mentality, so you clearly take your ideologies in jiu-jitsu and apply it to life and business.
Every single day.
Is it ever become difficult, like being in business with you, since you're the jiu-jitsu champion, and I'm going like, fuck, man, you're making it difficult to do business with?
Well, no, I think it's the other way around, because another principle of, you know, of jiu-jitsu is, you know, efficiency and maximum, you know, effectiveness with minimal effort.
Right.
So if a partnership, for example, you know, or a win-win relationship in business is the most effective way to accomplish my goals,
sure,
then I'm the easiest person to be in business with, because I want to have effectiveness with least amount of effort. So it's not that every principle of jiu-jitsu is so combative and so resistant and so anti, you know, connection and partnership.
Efficiency.
Yeah, it's efficiency. So, you know, but that's the point there, is that I've applied jiu-jitsu principles off the mat, especially in business and in negotiations and in dealing with different family members. I would say at least 50 times to 1. For every time I've had to deal with some punk or a road rage incident, or, you know, use my discipline and my technique and my confidence of jiu-jitsu to neutralize a potential threat scenario on the street, I've had to apply it 50 times.
Dude, that sounds badass. Neutralize a potential threat.
So, and I've had a few run-ins, because people are stupid in society, especially when you add egos and alcohol to their lives. People do dumb things, and you got to check them a little bit. But that's very rare. But like I said, compared to that, 50 times to 1, I've had to pull directly from jiu-jitsu principles. Sometimes the best move is no move, right? In jiu-jitsu, there are many times where you're tight in a tight spot, and anything you do could just make the situation worse. And the only thing you can do effectively right now is wait.
Relax.
And a lot of people, especially high-strung business people, don't have that mentality.
Yeah.
I got to do something right now to get over a hump, when really you shouldn't be moving right now. Right now, it's you're on the bottom of the mount. Wait, let the person on top of you begin to feel like you're not gonna escape anymore. And when they start to become complacent or adjust their body position, then you make your escape on a moment's notice 10 times more efficiently than if you were combating their control, focus 100%.
How important is breathing in all this?
Critical, you know, and I think that breathing on the mat is in life, it's the reflection, you know.
And most people, and this goes with high performance CEOs, they don't know how to breathe. I didn't know how to breathe properly until a year ago. And I played competitive tennis most of, you know, early high school, college life. I was breathing the wrong way.
Sure.
And you start to learn, you know, like you breathe through your nose, not breathe through like all your lung capacity when you're just starting out a match or whatever. You know, and I think yoga or breathing workshops or martial arts teaches you this, but I find that a lot of people don't know how to breathe.
Yeah, and what's cool about jiu-jitsu is that you don't have a choice but to figure it out.
It just puts you.
Yeah, when you're in there and you're moving with another body on top of you, and sometimes your lung is slightly compressed by another person's body weight, and your breath becomes shallower because you can't expand your lungs fully. So you have to become very creative and very efficient with how you oxygenate your lungs and your brain and your blood to be able to, stay safe and stay focused. So jiu-jitsu is beautiful because A, you have to figure out the breathing aspect, and B, when you're doing jiu-jitsu, and you see a lot of guys, I mean, Joe Rogan, a lot of very famous people are now adopting, Vince Vaughn is one of our most recent, kind of converts and fully committed students. Like this guy trains every week, 3 times a week without fail, unless he's filming a movie. And these people say, Henry, it has nothing to do with the fighting. This has everything to do with the principles applied off the mat, number one. Number two, with guys who have such busy lives like that, and girls, Jiu-Jitsu becomes their every single day vacation from the turbulent realities that they live. It's the vacation. When you and I were training and you were on the mat with me, if you think back to that, when you're on the mat for that hour or whatever it is, that you're there 100%. And other people have.
You're not thinking about your to-do list.
Yes.
You're not thinking about who you got to reply.
You can't. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Now, here's what's cool. If you like running on treadmills and that's your vacation, that's cool. But you can escape on a treadmill and still go back to the office.
Yeah.
You can escape during yoga. Even though you shouldn't, you can escape and go back to the office. Escape from the escape. Jiu-Jitsu, you have no choice.
It's a survival. You're put in a situation where
you have to. If you think about what emails you got to answer, you're next going to get choked. In lovingly, gentle, a respectful way, but you're going to get choked.
Yep.
And that's why so many people say, man, now Jiu-Jitsu is the forced, bad word, but forced meditation, breathing exercise every single day. And on top of that, you're learning a skill that could actually save your life. And better yet, you're building confidence that will prevent you from ever getting into the fight that would need these skills.
So we lost a very important personality and icon recently, Anthony Bourdain, who was a big jiu-jitsu fighter.
Friend of mine, yeah.
And what discipline was he involved with?
Meaning what?
In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, yeah. So he trained with some cousins of mine who are headquartered in New York. My cousin Hanzo, that's where him and his family live. But here's the thing. Anthony Bourdain was the most, as we know, traveling person probably on the planet for their work in terms of bouncing around the world. So he became the jiu-jitsu nomad, where he would show up at every school around the world that he could get to whenever he was there for work and just drop in. And that's how I met him. He would come to our school here in Beverly Hills and was just training here. Then he would go to Torrance. And then I met him at a UFC. So we would train backstage at the UFC before one of my fighters was going to go fight. So we just became friends like this on the move. And just an incredible guy, incredible student. And we were so lucky to have him as an ambassador of jiu-jitsu because he is the perfect student for jiu-jitsu. My grandfather and him never met because it was just after my grandfather passed that Anthony started training a few years after. So they never crossed paths. But my grandfather would have loved, he always loved to see older, unathletic, regular human beings do jiu-jitsu because that's what he intended it for. That's what he was. So he saw himself in that.
How long was he training?
He was a blue belt,
right?
A good chunk of years. Yeah, I would say, I don't know exactly, but 3-4 years, maybe at least, maybe more.
So it's about 1 or 2 years, depending
about
on
2 years,
how much
16, 18 months to 2 years for a blue belt. Yeah, the first major belt. But Anthony was just so dedicated, and I believe, I don't have the stats on it, but the way he spoke about jiu-jitsu so publicly on major interviews and major networks, I think he encouraged more people to start jiu-jitsu than probably any other mainstream celebrity, maybe except for Joe Rogan. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of someone who just ambassador talks about the benefits for them. And so many people would look at him and say, man, if he can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And that was critical for us to have that.
And what does the future look like right now for both jiu-jitsu?
And we got some other things in the works. But for jiu-jitsu, it's been such an interesting journey, this especially with the expansion, because with the utilization of technology and really transitioning into teaching jiu-jitsu through the internet and having so many students around the world now and having so many schools supporting those students, it really became a situation where, there was a phase there in the beginning of this, especially. We started about 10 years ago where there was just absolute resentment and hate from kind of the establishment in jiu-jitsu. And they just were totally against the use of technology. What's crazy is now almost every noteworthy jiu-jitsu head that spoke out against Gracie University in the beginning now has their own online site trying to replicate what's being done. Yeah, so it's great flattery. We still do it better.
You're a trendsetter.
Yeah.
And I would even think getting trolled or hate on the internet is like sort of a rite of passage. When I get trolled, people are like, send me screenshots. Hey, Ben, we should delete that. I never, ever delete it. Yeah. Because I just don't believe in that. Yeah. You have to allow that freedom of speech. You have to allow people to, speak what their mind is. But I would, if I were you, I would feel like it's kind of like we made it. Yeah. And
I feel that way. And, it's my dad always said 50% will love you, 50% will hate you. If you have anything, worthwhile to say. And here we are.
What do you recommend for family businesses out there? Because you're probably like the OG of family businesses.
Yeah, so,
managing personalities and emotions.
Yeah, so I'd say I could write the book on family businesses. the challenges and the opportunities.
Yeah.
And the 10 steps to successful family business. I got it. You know, in terms of what to do, what not to do. Succession from generation to generation is a very tricky thing, very tricky in a very proud family like ours.
How do you avoid the like obvious nepotism criticisms that, you know, somebody who wants to be promoted or works in the leadership organization, but they're not part of the family? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, for my philosophy is simple. You know, there's family members before me who say, no, family first and family, this and that. And it has to be family or there's no deal and only Gracies can teach. And I'm like, yo, I don't agree with that. To me, you're born with a last name. You didn't even get to choose it. You just are a victim of it sometimes, right? Or the benefactor. But there's no, to me, the family name, listen, I will favor hard work, dedication, talent, ability, teamwork, and loyalty, family name or not. And I'm speaking from experience because we have people on our team, jiu-jitsu instructors, full-time employees here at headquarters who help me run this empire of jiu-jitsu, who are not family members, and they're more family in their dedication to what we're doing than my very own family in some cases. So to me, such a huge family. I don't know if you know this, but the Gracie family has over 50 members professionally involved in jiu-jitsu today. It's the largest sports family in the world.
This is all distributed in the U.S. or all
worldwide?
Worldwide?
So my grandfather had 9 kids. His brother, Carlos, had 21 kids. So between the two of them, they had 105 grandkids, including myself. And that's where the freaking thing went like mice reproducing just in a crazy manner. And they're all over the world. They have schools everywhere. Everyone does their own thing. Some work together. Most don't. And it's just a huge family. So for me, you know, within the Gracie family, you can find the best of the best and the worst of the worst people on the planet. And so in that sense, I've learned it's not like 3 or 4 brothers and siblings who we kind of bicker at each other. It's so much bigger than that, that the family, you know, that doesn't really hold that much weight for me, other than the fact that, you know, my family's done great work and members of the family who've contributed to it. I'm always very grateful for it. It doesn't change that. What I'm saying is in terms of entitlement, in terms of the future, in terms of opportunity, you got to earn yours. You got to dedicate yours. And if you're dedicated, like family or not, you're going to get rewarded and there's opportunity for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really inspiring way to approach it, because I feel like there's so many, especially I mean, you're the archetype of a family business because you guys are massive.
It's massive.
And I would imagine it would feel intimidating even for a superstar to be like, can I ever really be a part of this family?
Yes.
And break in.
Very crazy. So we've had to deal with all of that. Everything you can imagine that can go difficult or challenging or go wrong in a family business, we went through. But I'll tell you this, we made it. You know.
Do you have mentors outside of the family that you were able to go to for counsel?
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate to have been born here, and that's the interesting part is for me particularly, I'm dealing with a lot of Brazilian culture and beliefs and business
mixed with Western culture.
Mixed with Western, where it's like, no, bro, like reward your people and do the right thing. And so totally different mental framework about how to run a business, about how to grow and expand our profit centers all over the world. And our curriculum, so
you still get to cherry pick all the best things that come from the Brazilian culture.
Yes, but the problem is it's hard. You can't really separate it, because if you get all the best things, but the people who made that possible also bring the luggage of the culture and the archaic beliefs about how a business should be run. And you're like, for real? This is not how we should be doing this. Look at all these other successful businesses; they do it like this. And it's like, no, this is how it's always been done. And I'm like, oh, dang, that's what we're up against.
Yeah,
we're up against how it's always been done. Right, and my simple mindset is, if we keep doing things the way we've always done them, we're only going to get the results we've always got. We can't triple, quadruple, or tenfold our results and our effectiveness and our global reach if we don't adopt technology and start putting some videos out there. And then we do it, and look what happens: 200,000 students in 196 countries.
Well, and I think the difference in culture is, I think, especially in Latin America, people are a little bit more. They find comfort at levels, and they don't move as fast. There's not that sense of urgency that we have here. And being around peers here in the U.S., where everything's about scaling and growing and multiplying and disrupting, I can only imagine those types of classes.
The frustrations of kind of the brakes being on when we should be going full throttle. Yep. And it has been and it was a very fine line between respecting the heritage of what made it possible for us to be here today and our family legacy, but at the same time, you know, forcing contributions into it to say,
Yep.
listen, guys, I know what's possible for this, but you got to loosen up the reins a little bit so we can fly.
Right.
That blend was fascinating. And I'll tell you, I had to pull from my jiu-jitsu bag of tricks unlike ever before to make it possible regarding patience. Right move at the wrong time is the wrong move. There is no impossible situation. There's always a technique waiting to be discovered. Just got to keep changing the angles and looking for the opportunity, and you find it. And, you know, so many principles applied made it possible to where now we're on a new growth spurt.
Where could someone learn about these principles without studying it? Is there, so there's Gracie University. Is there a book?
Right.
I mean,
no,
I feel like the business principles of jiu-jitsu is a fucking book right there.
So I've done corporate speaking engagements for, you know, organizations and large groups. Heading to Shanghai in January for the Young Presidents Organization to do a big talk for the YPO in Shanghai.
Nice.
So things like that. So I've done, and I filmed a couple of those and I've put them online. So if you go to YouTube and you type Entrepreneur Jiu-Jitsu, EJJ with Rener Gracie, you'll see there's a part 1 and a part 2, 2 separate talks that I've given at you know, entrepreneurial gathering conferences. And it really goes into detail with demonstrations of the principles applied, not only on the mat and how they apply in jiu-jitsu, full physical demonstrations, but also the translation of those and how I applied them directly, like anecdotes of how I used them to grow our business and how I got to where we are today. So it's beautiful. And, you know, I'm available for corporate talks. Hit me up.
Let's wrap up on the hoodie. I know this is
here's the
new
thing,
venture.
You guys. I was just at the park one day.
Yeah, I want to
with
hear
my son Haven, hanging out. It was December 27th, 2016, 10:30 a.m. 27, 2 days after Christmas. So all the in-laws are there. We're at the park. The grass is wet, but it starts to get a little sunny, and I'm like, man, I want to take off my hoodie because I'm sweating under this hoodie, even though it's a little chilly and it had rained the night before. I'm still getting chasing the baby. I'm getting sweaty. So I take off my hoodie and I don't want to tie it around my waist. So I do the loose kind of throw it over the shoulder. And when I do that, I went down to pick up the boy and it fell off my shoulder onto the wet grass. And I was so frustrated and I started sweating more. And I picked up my hoodie and I picked up the baby. And all I can think is there has to be a better way to carry an unworn sweatshirt or jacket or hoodie or whatever. So I go home, everyone's there hanging out at the house. I lock myself in the office, and 30 minutes later, I come out with the functional prototype. And then
let's see what
fast forward 6 months, and here we got it.
So this is for every dad who's been sweaty and frustrated. For everybody, not just dads.
Look, the hoodie comes off. And normally we would tie it around our waist, but that to me is like the little fruity, you know?
Right.
Then there's the European yacht club around the neck. I don't fly with that either.
All right.
So this is the solution we came up with. Make sure you get a wide frame of this. Look, flip it upside down. Look, and the entire hoodie goes into itself with one shakedown. You pull it tight, and now you have a fully functional backpack with adjustable straps, so you can run, jump, bike, parkour, jiu-jitsu, rock climb. Fully adjustable.
Ski sport. I'm thinking about snowboarding
Thank
too.
You. Snowboarding jacket.
Snowboarding jacket.
Coming up soon, you guys. We got to put that out there. But here's what's awesome. Fully functional, protected backpack. You can put your stuff inside. Your hoodie's already in there. You can even put your wallet, keys, or cell phone inside the hidden interior pocket right here, sewn on in the inside for easy access. And it's inside so no one can jack your stuff while it's in there. And then you open this back up. And here's what's crazy. When it gets chilly, you reach in with one hand, look, hold with the other, and in one pull, you're back to full hoodie functionality, and you're completely back, and it's fully integrated into the garment. You don't see anything, and here's what we did. I'll take you guys under the hood, literally. All we did was we added one layer of inside spandex kind of polyester lining here, fully soft, so you never feel anything in your back. And the backpack is tucked away on the inside, so it never touches your body. So these are fully, look at that. And then when you turn it over, it's sewn into the actual garment, so you don't even notice it in the exterior. You guys. This is called the Hero Hoodie. The company is called Quick Flip Apparel. In my opinion, and with the Hero Hoodie, whether you're wearing it or not, it's an asset to you because you can put stuff inside of it. Because if you're at a festival and you have a beanie on, some gloves, and a hoodie, you take off the hoodie, the beanie and the gloves go in the hoodie pockets in the backpack. You wear it. When it gets chilly again, everything comes back out and you go back to hoodie cold weather functionality. So that's my
efficiency from jiu-jitsu into clothing.
This is jiu-jitsu, you guys. So here's the deal. If you weren't set on doing jiu-jitsu for the confidence, the mental vacation every single day, the meditative effect, the breathing exercises, know that when you start doing jiu-jitsu, you start having billion-dollar ideas just randomly at the park, okay? So get with the program, get with jiu-jitsu, and start disrupting fighting, technology, or apparel. Anything is possible, you guys, with a few chokes and arm bars.
There you have it.
Quickflipapparel.com, you guys.
Mic drop, but don't drop this mic because then we're going to be screwed. Dude, thanks for coming on today, man.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Congratulations on all the great work with what you guys do.
Thank you.
And you can count on me.
This is the Rootstrap podcast with Rener Gracie, and tune in next time.